And the change of government won't stop a thing. I've run out of fingers counting the number of multinationals setting up here. What about the 3 companies that announced their plans to launch last week? I say they're shopping. Me, I'd be looking to sell. At what price? More. Much, much more. I don't know who you are or how you know these things, but one thing I'm sure of, you're in the wrong job. Here, call me tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'd like to hear more from you.
Are you ready for your big break? The East African, understanding the region.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
A very good morning to you this Tuesday, the 7th day of October. Thank you for choosing Morning at NTV. My name is Mebo Kebirunji, standing by Brian Mulondo, Simon Kasiate, Joel Senyonyi, and obviously we shall be having sports later on towards the end of the show. Let's kick off with our question of the day. Oh, I beg your pardon. We shall continue with by taking a look at the news making the headlines. Former Prime Minister Mama Mbabazi has handed over to his successor, Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda, at an event where the previously powerful Mbabazi showed rare emotion. Mbabazi described his 3-year stint in the office of the Prime Minister as challenging but interesting. New Prime Minister Dr. Rugunda said he would lay emphasis on improving health services, especially in rural areas, and job creation for the youth. Solomon Siranja reports.
The Right Honourable Amama Mbabazi.
Technically, John Patrick Amama Mbabazi is now officially out of the executive arm of President Yoweri Museveni's government for the first time since he joined it in 1986. The flamboyant Kinkizi West MP and ruling NRM Party Secretary General has now relinquished the Prime Minister's office, which he occupied for 3 years and 114 days until the 18th of September. At the event graced by several ministers under the office of the Prime Minister and civil servants, Mbabazi fondly recalled his days in the OPM.
Today marks the beginning for all of us. I live in good spirit. I leave the OPM family with humility and ever so grateful for the support you accorded to me.
For a man who enjoyed the trappings of power, including being driven in luxurious cars, with siren blaring escort cars clearing his way, it was probably dawning on Mbabazi that life had now changed. And this realization seems to have taken a toll on him.
I didn't stay long, but I enjoyed the short time I was there.
Mbabazi listed some of the successes government scored during his tenure.
The OPM, if I may refer to it as the OPM, has provided strategic leadership for government business in Parliament through coordinating the programming of the legislative agenda and attendance of cabinet ministers to their parliamentary responsibilities.
Probably his biggest blot was the 50 billion shilling scandal, for which former OPM principal accountant Geoffrey Kazinda is serving 5 years in Luzira prison. As he officially prepared to hand over to his longtime friend Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda and bid farewell to OPM staff, the usually calm, jolly, but strong-willed Mbabazi appeared emotionally drained. He was then given the official handover documents for signing before finally handing over the instruments of power. Dr. Lugunda, fondly referred to as Ndugu for his amiable nature, smiled away as he officially took charge as the new Prime Minister of Uganda. The retired medical doctor pledged to focus on improving health service provision.
Mothers in Uganda, while carrying out their natural responsibilities of procreation, need additional support and assistance by society, because without that process, society would not be there.
Dr. Lugunda, who has held over 10 ministerial portfolios and senior government positions since 1986, called for support as he embarks on the tough work ahead. Mbabazi has denied harboring presidential ambitions, but the actions of his supporters, including his wife, Jacqueline Mbabazi, and some youth betray his denials. So I later asked whether he would vie for the presidency.
I don't know why people keep asking that question. I feel a lot of vigor in me, and I'm ready to render whatever service my colleagues, my countrymen think I can render.
Yellow is the predominant ruling NRM party color, and Mbabazi, who often donned yellow ties, seems to prefer other colors of late.
But do you know that NRM also has blue? We also have red. We have green. So, I'm not outside.
Mbabazi's loud silence on his next course of action since his sacking as premier on the 18th of September has left friends and foes guessing as the political terrain shapes up ahead of the 2016 general elections. Solomon Serwanja, NTV.
Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta will head to the International Criminal Court in The Hague to honor summons regarding his alleged involvement in organizing the 2007 post-election violence. President Kenyatta made the announcement at a special joint sitting in the Kenyan National Assembly and the Senate. He also delegated his deputy William Ruto to act as president while he's away. Chris Oshamuringa with that report.
President Uhuru Kenyatta made his way to the Kenyan Parliament to address MPs and senators with focus on his summons to the International Criminal Court in the Netherlands. The World Court recently summoned the Kenyan leader to attend a pre-trial meeting known as a status conference over his alleged involvement in masterminding ethnic massacres that left at least 1,200 people dead after the 2007 elections.
I wish to reiterate here for all that my conscience is clear, has been clear, and will remain forever clear that I am innocent of all the accusations that have been leveled against me.
President Kenyatta told lawmakers that he would fly to The Hague in his personal capacity, but not as the head of state.
Let it not be said that I am attending the status conference as the President of the Republic of Kenya. Nothing in my position or my deeds as president warrants my being in court.
With that announcement, the president closed debate on whether he would honor the ICC summonses. If he had declined, the ICC would have probably issued an arrest warrant against him, and he would join Sudanese President al-Bashir as an ICC fugitive. President Kenyatta's trip, scheduled for this Wednesday, has sparked a lot of debate in Kenya. Many opposition leaders boycotted the parliamentary session, arguing that the ICC case is a private matter for Mr. Kenyatta, not warranting having a State of the Nation address. Last month, the ICC judges rejected Kenyatta's request to attend the status conference by video link and ordered that he attends in person. Deputy President William Ruto, who will take charge in the president's absence, is also battling ICC charges similar to Kenyatta's. Chris Ochamringa, NTV.
The Ministry of Health has confirmed that there are 8 suspected cases of the Marburg viral disease from Uganda, and they are from the districts of Kasese, Impigi and Kampala. The 8, including the brother of the first victim to the disease who died in September, are exhibiting mild signs and symptoms of the deadly viral disease. Marburg viruses are endemic in arid woodlands and have been found in monkeys, chimps, and fruit bats. Experts suspect that the Marburg virus is transmitted to humans through an infected animal's bodily fluids, including blood, and through the droppings of urine of bats. Florence Nalimba with more.
7 more suspects with Marburg symptoms now make the number 8 after Sunday's report from the Ministry of Health.
Some mild symptoms, and we have taken off blood, and we shall give you the results today or tomorrow morning.
The Mpigi Health Center for health worker is a brother to the deceased health worker from Mengo Hospital, who passed away on 28 September. The very day, the Uganda Virus Research Institute confirmed the viral disease, which is similar to Ebola.
Most of the contacts don't have any signs of the disease. They are well and alive, but we have restricted their movements because they are under strict observation.
The contacts are now 97, including 60 health workers from Mpigi Health Center 4 and Mengo Hospital, where the disease was receiving treatment.
He came through like any other patient, was treated for what we thought was malaria, but just before he died, he started bleeding.
The body was handled by others in Kasese, his home district. They did not know the cause of his death then. Strict observation has been upped for the non-contacts.
Because when these people are sick or they get the disease, if you catch them early, the chances of survival are almost 100%.
The medical director at Mengo says the health workers are on leave, with some being monitored at the hospital and others at their homes. Some of the signs and symptoms include abrupt high fever, severe headache and severe malaise, severe watery diarrhea, abdominal pain and cramping, nausea and vomiting. Fatal cases usually have some form of bleeding, often from multiple sites. Death for many occurs after 8 to 9 days of onset of the symptoms. Mengo Hospital authorities say they are ready to deal with Marburg if any contact starts showing signs. However, the main isolation camps are in Entebbe and at Mulago Hospital.
It's been long since Mulago had the need to use an isolation center, and this has been deserted for quite some time. The grass had even grown, but now the need has presented itself because of the Marburg feared cases.
Our team is set. We have all the equipment, protective gear.
So really we are prepared. We have the infection control materials which we have predisposed in strategic places which can be used.
The National Task Force on Marburg has already been established and has had a meeting this evening with different stakeholders to devise ways of curbing the spread of the virus. The Minister of Health has appealed to the public to report anyone with signs similar to Marburg or Ebola using the number +256 75099 6034 075099 6034. Florence Nalimba, NTV.
You're still watching Morning at NTV. We now cross over to the gentlemen who are in Studio B, should I say, to find out what's making news in today's press. Good morning, Brian.
Well, good morning, Mabel, and we wake up to the headline this morning, and Amama saying he will speak on the presidency later. He is kind of like in some corridors, what they say, playing lots of politics, not coming out clearly. Is that what we expect of a politician, or he's actually being wise and making sure he will come out at the right time? We'll be analyzing that and taking a look at the other stories in the dailies this morning on the press review. Stay with us. Well, this morning is the 7th of October 2014, and you can see that we are still living in the carnival festivities. Some of the parts of the city are still dirty. Companies that exhibited are still cleaning for 2 days.
Very annoying. Yesterday by 9 a.m., okay, you talk about even this morning. Yesterday 9 a.m. it was worse. The city was one huge garbage dump. I thought, no, this is the ineptitude of the highest order, for goodness sake. I don't know where you guys come through to come here, but ordinarily, KCC cleaners are on the road by about 5 a.m. sometimes. But yesterday it was something different. 9 a.m. and there was hardly any work going on.
They had been partying the previous night, so
come on.
I don't expect that they had a hangover. No.
Serious business. You talk about even this morning, the parts that are still a mess. It's not acceptable. It's
the same thing is, I think we expect a lot more from ourselves than we actually should.
But why not? Why not? We should set the bar high.
I'll give an example. I mean, I have been to those places which we love to call developed, and indeed, perhaps they are developed by the way they conduct themselves. But I can tell you from what I have seen this morning with regard to security checks and all that around the Serena Conference Center, because I think the president will be coming here, or one of his guests, I do not know. I am worried that maybe in the next 1 year, if the president is coming to Serena, they'll be stopping us from Nakawa. Because I have never seen, this is unprecedented, where you have sentry machines at the entrance. When I talk about machines, I'm just seeing figures that look like human beings but which do not have the qualities of human, because human beings have rationale and think and ask questions and all that. But machines operate on a switch on and off. You see my phone here. If I accidentally press the on the button, for it to record, because for it has received the command that call. It doesn't matter whether I'm calling SOS, I'm calling so and so. For it, it will just call the available number. And that for me is what explains much of these security checks here. And I can tell you, the level of inconveniencing, it is unprecedented. I do not know what the level of paranoia is, but it trickles down. All of us simply are not doing what we are supposed to be doing.
Which is inexcusable. You talk about, in other countries, I don't know whether after a carnival like this one, it was a good one. I think it's good for Kampala dwellers to get together, celebrate. But you see, after celebrating, serious business should resume.
No, I attended a 5-day carnival in Copenhagen. And you can believe me, my student days, I attended every single day till late, and I woke up very early to go and start from where I stopped.
Even when you went for the gift.
So for
everything. But I can tell you, whenever we retire at 1 a.m., before we retire, while people were busy battling the streets, there were people cleaning the streets. In the morning, you woke up and you couldn't believe there was a carnival here, and we drank and poured all these beer bottles and crushed bottles and crushed plastic cans. No, and this was a 5-day carnival. By the last day, the next day, the city was like it never hosted a carnival at all. Everything was down, the scaffolding was down, everything. So,
the cars were literally running over garbage.
We are on our way there.
Come on.
But you see, that is the level.
That's why
we are rolling. We need to walk.
But you see,
I'm complaining. Okay, I don't know why.
I had someone on a radio station last
evening complaining.
Next time, don't start battles you can't finish.
No, I'm complaining. Someone on radio yesterday was saying that one of the biggest malaise of Africa is celebrating mediocrity and expecting that to be progress. We're always saying we are on our way there. Others have arrived and even proceeded ahead, but for us, we are celebrating that we are on our way. For how long are we going to be our way? We are 52 years independent.
Countries the countries that we look at as standards are 200 years independence.
Exactly, but on their 50th anniversary, I don't think they were behaving like as
even if they are worse off, for goodness sake, we cannot use that as a yardstick.
And 50 years of the independence, they were still going through the rudimentary machines of the Industrial Revolution. Here we have everything on the palms of our fingers. Somehow we leap forward and then take 20 steps backwards. We have smartphones in our hands, but we behave like we've never spelled the word smart.
Well, Mama Mbabazi this morning says, I'll speak on presidency later, like I'll speak on the carnival later.
Well, and the lizard is asking him this morning, what's so wrong with speaking about it now?
Is it going to be counterproductive for Amama to speak now? Will it literally, I think they say checkmate. Is it too early to checkmate?
But I think you're trying to make us like the red paper, which has failed to deliver us newspapers here in the last 1 week.
Some person will have to share 2 newspapers among them.
What happens to this Uganda character and bringing here these newspapers? And I know he's watching this morning, or at least his handlers are. For 1 week, we are not receiving the red paper here.
It's more than a week, actually.
But guess what? Someone said they have had their 500th headline with the word Amama consecutively.
Wow.
Nani huyo?
Of course, now you say a year has 365 days. They only say having Amama in the last 1 week. But every single day since this whole Amama thing came up, every single day on the front page, it is an Amama story. And in fact, today, because I had the chance of looking at the vendor holding the newspaper, they said, plot to arrest Amama Mbabazi.
Yeah, I think that's true.
That's in the red paper. Shall we avoid discussing Amama at least for once and discuss about the 5 suspected Marburg victims that are reported on the front page of the Daily Monitor?
Some people are thinking this Marburg is a Marburg. You know Marburg?
Isn't that goiter?
I think it is tonsillitis, mumps or something. They imagine it is one of those ish not so big a deal illnesses, but it is a serious one, a hemorrhagic fever. It is in the category of the likes of Ebola, and we need to be very careful.
Well, we are being told here in the Daily Monitor, and of course it's the news that has been making it the headlines this morning, President Uhuru Kenyatta leaves for the Hague to attend that status conference, which really is the polite way of saying he's going for a court session. And as we speak now, the Kenyan president is William Ruto, having received the instruments of power yesterday. So Uhuru Kenyatta is going to The Hague, not in his capacity as president of Kenya, but as Uhuru Kenyatta, Mr. Never mind all this international brouhaha saying he's the first sitting president to go to The Hague. But I mean, technically he isn't, because the president of Kenya is now William Ruto. But you know,
well, there's not been a call. I mean, it's just like when our president is away, there's somebody in charge.
He does. You know, there is what you need delegation of authority and all that.
This was all grandstanding, and you know, like you like to say. But I like the fact that he's saying, look, I'm not going as a president. I'm going as a plain, you know, individual suspect, and that's a good thing. But you see, one challenge I'm having is this whole hula-baloo of, I don't know, 4 African presidents are going to accompany him, over 100 MPs from Kenya are going with him.
That's a show of loyalty, isn't it?
Loyalty to what?
To him.
I mean, Joel, if you could afford it, every time people are going to the airport, I see costers and costers of people
the first time I went, I actually had like 3 buses.
Yeah, and upon return, and upon return, you even found the dust troop waiting for you. Matoke suckers are planted by the roadside. If you were president by any chance, these ones would have proceeded beyond the airport and gone with you. No, you haven't. We are still there going. I will work with Rugunda, says Amam, again going back to the story here in the Daily Monitor. And indeed, of course, does he have a choice? Of course, you must work with the lead of government business, especially if you're a member of parliament. And so I think for me it was a sign of magnanimity and all that.
Which is expected of Mbabazi. Everyone thinks he knows how to, you know, say the right words at the right time. And maybe he'll say the right words about the presidency later. But gentlemen, this is very important. You know, while politics is marketing us, what lies ahead for Miss Tourism winner? I had a privilege of being a part
one of them might be
Miss Tourism, Northern Uganda. And you can...
You were one of the contestants?
Come on.
No, I mean, share with us.
By the way, let me say, but I'll be hounded for it. I was going... Hey, let me leave.
Since when did you start fearing being hounded?
I was part of the media, you know, crew, filming and doing all the photography. And you can see the intention is really, you know, good this time. But how much should, you know, we use beauty pageants to sell this country?
Maybe a lot more than we are. Let me say what I was going to say. A friend of mine, a guy told me that, you know, for many of these beauty pageants, if we were to stand, I mean, if we were to contest, it would actually not be the last.
Why?
I don't know what exactly he meant. Stop asking me. I'll probably, but I guess, you know, considering the way it is done and so on, get to hear, no, the one who contributed to the car is the one that wins and that kind of thing.
As someone who is a benefactor of someone that was Miss Uganda in 2007, I can tell you, I only got to know that this girl was in a serious contest. I thought she was just, you know, passing her hobby and all that, until they announced her winner here.
But despite several... Show you told us that, you know, there were issues and then
yes, after that,
help her out.
After that. You see, the moment they make you miss something, and in particular case for my sister, when they made her Miss Uganda, there was all this promise, you'll have this, you'll have the other, we'll take you to Miss World, you'll go to China and all that. Indeed, they provided her a car almost a month down the road. They had elevated her status such a way that she needed these amenities to move around. They gave her a car ostensibly to belong to her, but in essence, it actually never belonged to her at all. Then they sent her to Miss World.
Afterwards?
Oh, they didn't even wait for the rain to end, but clearly you should have known the sham that those people are. I see one of the organizers, a friend of mine called Abu. Yeah, I think he has rehabilitated himself, but then he was one of the people you would gladly call a vagabond. These people, I think now the current Miss Uganda franchisee holder perhaps means some business, but that one of that particular time of my sister, they were clear con persons, and that I can say without a fear of contradiction. I sent my sister off to Miss World in Beijing, and she is virtually hustling, living. At one point, she called me in distress and crying and saying, I have nothing to eat. So I was filming for her. Yes, she was representing an institution called Miss Uganda. I hope that these organizers of these Miss Something pageants, and especially this one that has the blessing of government's Ministry of Tourism, they actually mean business and do not go to abuse and use the girls that do participate in this with well intentions and good intentions.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I can say it was such an experience for my sister, and I don't think she regrets being that. But clearly, for me, it was a lesson to show that many people, like you are saying, everything is just one bunch of mediocrity going around. Organizers of Miss Pageants don't mean business. Perhaps that was 2007. I hope it's better in 2014.
7 years later.
Well, currently, the contestants are, you know, are camping at Uganda Wildlife Education Center, learning about wildlife and all the stuff about Uganda, which is really good. I think
they have to wait to contest to learn anything about Uganda. These are adult girls over 20 years.
That's the unfortunate part. But what are they taught in school? You know, geography, the prairies of Canada, the problems of New York.
But they also taught about the Great Rift Valley. They are also taught about plateaus. They are also taught about savanna grassland.
Well, perhaps not as much as
they are taught about Lake Victoria and who discovered the River Nile.
With our education. I have an issue with our education system. You know, many of this absolute nonsense that we are studying.
Joel doesn't remember much of what he studied in school.
Well, I do. I've told you about the prairies of Canada, South Africa.
Once,
you know,
in your school.
There you go. I went to the zoo once. I think in my primary school. Well, thereafter I went as an adult, just when I needed to chill out and that kind of thing. But you see, we need to revamp. We need to see an overhaul of our education system. So you cannot blame them.
You remember the unfortunate case where a baby was accidentally or deliberately, the case is in court and the lady was convicted for that. This hospital case where the nurse that had HIV and all that. Yeah. So now we're told in the Daily Monitor this morning that this baby is suing the facility, the hospital that did subject him to this kind of near-death situation. And I think this is a lawsuit that many of us will be following very closely from a media perspective, if for nothing else, to teach a lesson to, indeed, handlers of our lives to be more, not to fall into the general malaise of Africanism where we say everything just passes, even when we subject people to near-death situations.
After all, we are improving. A baby sewing. Not too long ago in Pakistan, a 9-month-old baby
was sent to jail.
To court and sent to jail for trying to stone, I think, police. And I said,
even animals are arrested.
Like in Nigeria, it was a thief who turned into a goat or something. So even if I'm the one, I arrested a goat.
Well, on a very serious note, I think we hope, and I hope that Pope Francis realizes that in Uganda we don't take no for an answer. Well, he did receive an invitation from President Museveni to attend Martyrs' Day celebrations next year, and there's a picture of Archbishop of Kampala, Cyprian Kizito Rwanga, presenting this invitation, complete, if you look at it very closely, with the signature of President Museveni, inviting the pontiff to Uganda come next year.
Yeah.
Now,
it's been meaning to come, and then they put it off, and so on.
I am imagining. The last Martyrs' Day, we had this show broadcast live there.
Oh yes.
Now, and President Museveni was coming and others, and you saw the inconvenience that happened with security and all that. If the Pope is going to be here next year, with the way we have been searched under the tank, just arrived here this morning because somebody is coming to this conference, and I will tell you, roads will be blocked from as far as Njeru towards Jinja, PG.
For me, I said it on national television. While I got into, I ended up going to some toilets.
I don't know what.
There's nothing clearly defined, but I think now that they want to, first of all, create a museum, they want to revamp the whole place.
They're putting together money?
Yeah, they're putting together money. Maybe by the time the Pope comes, I hope they don't plant trees 2 weeks to the Pope's arrival.
I like the way you're hoping.
If it is going to be led by the Catholic Church, and let's cut some slack for this denomination, and my conflict of interest is very clear there. I'm Roman Catholic without a doubt. But I know we may fail on many things, but we are meticulous when it comes to matters of our faith, and we do things. That's why you see, our churches are constructed in record time, our projects go in record time. You don't hear cases of corruption that go seriously unpunished, as is the case when I read the newspaper here that Museveni has pledged 400 million for Martyrs Museum of the Protestant Shrine, and I have nothing against the Protestant faith, but I hope that this money goes to do what's supposed to do, as opposed to Church House, whose foundation was laid long before Mapera House. Mapera House has since been operating and bringing money to the Catholic Church, while Church House remains a shell.
So why don't we see the same playing out in the fields where we are at, and not just the Catholic faith, Pentecostals where you and I belong, and
where churches.
We try to do a good job, on Sunday especially. But you see, like a friend of mine does say, church begins on Monday, Sunday is garage time. But you see, on Sunday we are very organized and stuff, and you even report to church very early. But when it comes to work, we report very late. We are very lackluster in the way we do things.
It depends on
so if we can have a replication of whatever we do for the church, for God, in our day-to-day work,
perhaps that would happen. But you see, with the Catholic Church, where you have the lead of the church being the Pope, who is an infallible leader, someone whose word is almost law, and then you've got all these...
previous one made, is it the 10 more commandments or something?
The bureaucracy of all these others that follow him. You have people who have gone to, full, total celibacy, people who do not have this kind of nuclear family pressures. You are not going to fundraise for a church and receive 400 million. As a priest with a family, when your children are not going to school and you expect to keep this money for a church project, it becomes very difficult from a human perspective. We are all human.
What an alibi.
So perhaps
have families, that is why they end up using the money.
That could partly explain from an anthropological point of view. But I want to believe that, I mean, what else would explain why the Catholic prelates tend to be more frugal with their resources for their church as opposed to other faiths whose leaders are married people? Perhaps.
Well, that's a question that you will have to answer, but we hope when that time comes, you'll be ready for the Pope's visit. Well, they usually come to Uganda. We know how to bring them here. But the police is investigating a bus head over theft. Now, I've also been told that while you're driving, these guys will pretend like they are working on their car, or stop you to help them or give them jumpers, and then rob you.
There's so many things that are happening. You know, for example, if you're driving in the night and you realize that your screen is messed up, when you get out to clean, that is when they hijack you. Especially they use eggs and stuff like that. Yes. They hit your car with it, so when you come out to clean it, and you know that is when they do whatever.
Or when you flicker your wiper, then the wiper makes it worse.
It actually makes it worse. You know,
so you can't
advise, just keep going till, I don't know, you get home or that kind of thing. So much going on, unfortunately. People want to reap where they have not sown.
Or perhaps you need to be asked to have a machete in the boot of your car, so when you come out, you're just waving it as you clean. Talking about cleaning cars, we are told from the front page of the Daily Monitor that Semo Gerere is making a killing from washing cars, and you would want to know which Semo Gerere this is. It certainly is far from Paul Kawanga Semo Gerere. It's another Semo Gerere who is making a killing from the car wash business. And yes, of course, with all these cars, every day you see new number plate series just hitting the streets. One would imagine that as people buy all these wonderful cars, they need to keep them clean. So you position yourself as the guy that's going to make them clean, using all sorts of innovations, including those who are washing them with the naked girls at a beach near Kampala. And there we have it.
Quote of the day, this is by Makinde Division Mayor Ian Clark. He was being accused of impersonating the Lord Mayor Elias Lukwago, and he says, I'm a tall, lean white guy. How can I impersonate Mr. Lukwago?
Meaning that Lukwago is a short, fat.
Those are your words.
No, you see, he's trying to draw contrast.
Not at all. He's just saying who it is.
Let's no, I mean, black man.
Lukwago is a short, not lean, black man.
No, why? Fat?
Okay, that's more charitable.
Unemployed youth need more advice and they need jobs, and that is Nicholas Sengo.
Maybe he was doing that on the phone. On the phone, Ian Clark would call, you know, you could call you and say, I am the Lord Mayor, but I'm imagining the contrasting accents as well.
What is the Lord Mayor?
No, if Ian Clark spoke to you in English and Lukwago spoke to you in English, here there would be a separation of accents. Because
you would see one who is flagrante delicto.
Well, you have it. Rainbow Magazine, your favorite kids pull-out magazine, is here in the Daily Monitor, and they have an Independence Day special looking at young children here who are all clad and modeling in national colors. Yellow comes out predominant.
Well, if you still want to see more pictures of the City Festival, please feel free to go there. And also,
it's not a festival, but for some reason we are still, you know, in the carnival mentality. It was a carnival back then. But you see, the words are nearly the same. They are kind of synonyms, but there you have it.
There's something for an interesting read that even the adults need to take particular interest in as much as it comes up in the Rainbow Magazine. It's a pin-up poster of Uganda's presidents since independence. Many of you do not know some of these Ugandan presidents. For example, who was the president that took over from Idi Amin Dada?
Wasn't it Lule?
Who took over from Lule?
You have the newspaper.
Tito.
You see,
no, I'm trying
you
to.
see back then.
It was Tito. Okay.
And then who took over from Tito?
The man who said NTV Woma, Binaisa.
I doubt. You have put it the other way around. Binaisa was president the time I was born.
And when were you born?
I was young. And I was not born in 1985. So yes, it's very important that many of our viewers do get themselves a copy of the Daily Monitor and get this pin up to know that we have been 52 years independent. 28 of those have been by one president, and the other 7 shared the other 20-something other years.
So what are you saying?
Yeah, you people need to know
stability.
that
Stability.
NRM is busy.
Stability of the presidency of the world.
We've been complaining about the messy transport in the city, and this morning is how easy it is to use the taxi parks Please go there. There's a special report on how you can make sure that you maneuver your way through the taxi park.
But people make it seem like the taxi park is one hell of a disorganized place. You know,
it's not.
It looks disorganized when you look at it, especially Kampala Taxi Park from Platinum House. When you look down there, you will see this Kampala Taxi Park, the one here, the old park.
The old one, okay.
It looks disorganized when you look at it from Platinum House. If it's still haven't been Platinum House in ages. But when you get down in there, there's a lot of tremendous order. You can't believe every taxi knows when it's supposed to be moving. You know, they know which stage is where. You know, it is such. So it's more like
organized chaos.
The old tagline for Nokia phones, where they say that serious inside, fun outside. So very interesting.
Okay.
The taxi park inside there.
Quietly brilliant.
Then someone once told me that, you know, Spear Motors had better one time put up a very serious contest where they park a state-of-the-art Mercedes-Benz somewhere in the middle of the taxi park. And they give you the keys and say, if you drive it out without a scratch, just continue and go home. And they don't give it to a taxi driver. No, they just find you, Mulondo, who is used to driving your automatic car.
And I just knock anyone.
They put it there. The taxi park operates normally and say, here are the keys. When you drive it out without
a scratch. Saying we don't want to give you the car. I don't know. But
on Saturday, Uganda is going to be playing Togo. We did very well against Guinea, and we're looking for our next win. And so, again, on behalf of the Uganda Cranes Bambi, please go and support the guys. We'll be talking more sport later. Ronaldo has 22 hat-tricks in Spain.
But I'm told there's somebody who's still a lot better than him.
Who, Messi? Yeah, I know. But Messi has 19 hat-tricks.
So who do you in Arsenal have?
They have this character who left Man U because he wanted to play for Champions League. And indeed, when this boy came in, he scored a hat-trick. That was the last hat-trick that Arsenal did celebrate. Recently, I mean,
Welbeck scored a hat-trick.
You can miss Arsenal noise when they play. Even when they lose, they make so much noise.
It is. That's why someone said that when you get married to an Arsenal man, know that you're going to stick it out.
They are long-suffering fellows.
They are long-suffering. Yeah? Regardless of what happens, we are always there. We'll be talking more sport later with Isma. Grab a copy of the Daily Monitor and, of course, get the other stories and read more details. Now, Mabel, we've been talking about the loyalty of Kenyan MPs to escort their president, who is now Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta. Tell us this morning, I've seen lots of pictures on the internet with one of the MPs, Mike Sonko, going to the barber shop and getting a haircut. Do not respect our president, say no to ICC.
Wait a minute, he had all those things with
yes, he had all that. Yeah.
But you know Mike Sonko is another of those charlatans in Kenya.
Tell us more about that and the other stories making headlines on the international scene.
Much, Brian. I actually do have that picture here. This is Mike Sonko. He is an MP in Kenya. If you remember, NTV, I think, had done a profile on him. He has some tattoos and he has earrings. He's basically, I don't know, he has taken .com to a new level. However, some of the Kenyans are obviously not impressed by him. He is very flamboyant. I think that is just an understatement. He also wants to sponsor 20 Kenyans to go to The Hague as they escort Uhuru Kenyatta as a sign of solidarity and also to intimidate the court there. That is according to him. Kenyans, however, did roast him, as this headline says here. Mike Sonko's new hairstyle. He tells Uhuru not to go to the ICC as Kenyans roast him. He has blonde hair. He dyed his hair blonde, and that is the back of his head. Moving on, we'll start off with the BBC. There's an analysis here. Why are Western women joining the Islamic State? Many of these women are coming actually from Great Britain, and they are joining these, I don't even know if I can call them rebels or terrorists in ISIS, and they feel it is a calling. So many people are just disappearing from school and joining them. Also on BBC, an Ebola outbreak, a nurse infected in Spain. The Spanish health minister has confirmed that a nurse who has treated 2 victims of Ebola in Madrid has tested positive for this viral disease. This is the first time a person has contracted the disease outside of Africa. It's actually a big story here on BBC. Now here, I do not know if you can actually see this picture, but this is a monkey a midwife monkey helping another monkey give birth. The baby was coming out, the baby monkey was coming out, and this monkey helped pull the baby out of the mother. Very interesting here. This behavior is totally unexpected, and I guess it takes you know, it's unprecedented. The midwife monkey here helping get the other monkey out. It's a phenomenon of midwifery unheard of among the primate family. Exclusive here. This is a lady here. She has covered her head. She was a school teacher and an ISIS member, but she has defected because of the brutality. She tells her story, an inside story of what it's like to be a female in ISIS in Syria. Now, Ferguson flash mob disrupts St. Louis Symphony with Michael Brown Requiem service. We used to talk a lot about Ferguson, Missouri during the protests because of Michael Brown's death, but there was a flash mob as people took to the streets again. This time these demonstrators took their demands to the seats of the symphony. At the St. Louis Symphony, it returned, but people stood up and began singing an old protest song. I guess they're not happy about what has been happening there. Now, China family planning, decades of putting all eggs in one basket. The government is happy. China's Communist Party leaders have praised their one-child policy, saying it has prevented 400 million births since the 1980s, and they believe it has helped reduce the population of that country. However, critics say it has created a generation of spoiled brats and reinforced a cultural preference for male heirs who can better take care of their parents in old age. And that's, you know, I guess it has to be there has to be a balanced view. We shall end with this story. Michael Phelps has been suspended by the U.S. swimming for 6 months. He was caught driving under the influence. He has been suspended here. He's one of the most decorated Olympians from the U.S. in swimming, and he will also not be paid during the time of his suspension. I am sure we shall be talking more about this story during the sports segment later on. Morning at NTV will continue after this break.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiati, Mabel Kanji, and Brian Mulondo.
We transact every day, and for centuries, currencies have changed hands. Business is a must, and that is why Money Matters makes it a must to talk business.
The biggest market out in Uganda because of East African connections and business.
From farming to business trading, we give you all the angles.
When you're harvesting, that one is the most important part, which we have to be there.
We'll bring you all the details that doing business has to offer.
Thoughts of the business leaders in the market.
The airline industry doesn't operate like any other industry, where you go in and buy a shirt and this shirt is 20 shillings today, it will be 20 shillings tomorrow, 20 shillings.
The analysis of the costs and the income in the industries. From wherever we are, we talk business, and at Money Matters, where money indeed matters.
Business is a must.
So, don't miss talking business with us every Thursday only on NTV.
Watching Morning at NTV. Simon Kasiati, Mabel Kanji, and Brian Mulondo.
Welcome back from that break. We now join Simon for today's big story. Good morning, Simon. I think we are experiencing a slight technical hitch with Simon's sound. But just to remind you that NTV is turning 8, so please remember to send the code that you see in the left-hand side of your corner to 6666, and you stand a chance to win lots of prizes. Let's try and see if we have Simon ready. Good morning, Simon.
Thanks, Maibo, and sorry for that hitch. As we draw closer to independence, questions abound as to how far this country has gone 52 years down the road. And, of course, much of it can never be discussed without looking at the political developments. And this morning, with a distinguished guest in the studio, we'll be discussing the state of Uganda's opposition. Is it about time that this opposition means, says, and acts the way it is supposed to? A very good morning once again, and welcome to the big story segment of Morning at NTV. And this morning we are looking at the state of Uganda's opposition. Now, of course, we know that since 1996, we've had free, fair, regular elections for the presidency by use of universal suffrage. The word free and fair can be contested, and possibly they continue to be contested. But the fact is, we've had these elections coming in cyclically over 5 years. We're looking at the state of Uganda's opposition. All these elections that I've mentioned, from 1996 to 2001, 2006, and coming down to the last one, 2011, we've not seen a change of guard whatsoever, and yet there has been formidable opposition to the reign of President Yoweri Museveni. We are getting into yet another election, but far from that, we're looking at the state of our democracy, coming down to over half a century of independence. This morning, Professor Maurice Ogenga Latigo, former leader of opposition in the House and still an active member of the Forum for Democratic Change, I want to believe, is here to discuss with us the state of Uganda's opposition from where he views it. Good morning and welcome to the show once again, Honorable.
Thank you, Simon, and good morning, viewers. And I don't know why you want to believe.
Well, you may need to reassure me. Never mind the colors that you are wearing lately. You are wearing and have been consistent wearing them, which is blue.
People asked Mama about it, the color of his tie.
And he gave a very ingenious answer. He said, well, the NRM has got all these other colors, and he's still within the color spectrum of NRM. Good. Let's look at the state of our opposition. Yeah. But let's start it from this point where your successor, Right Honorable Nanda Mafabi, is now in the spotlight for looking ugly in the sense that he seems to be more materialistic than everyone expected him to be, asking for packs as leader of opposition. Yes. Don't these little attention to pecuniary gains undermine the struggle which the opposition should otherwise be spearheading? Because one would imagine the opposition, with the state of affairs politically in this country, should be selfless, should be out to work for the greater good of the country as opposed to personal aggrandizement. Yes. Or should we say, you cannot lead and fail to get some packs to yourself?
I think what Honorable Nandala intended, and I believe I would have done the same, is what it means to be leader of opposition in a bicameral parliament. There are two sides to the House. If you recognize one side of the House, leader of government, business, and prime minister, you should recognize the other side of the House. It's not because of the packs, but the psychological positiveness that it brings to a multi-party parliamental democracy. And
how come you do not pursue it yourself?
Well, you know...
And you serve the full term, the real sense of it.
My problem is when you have a good idea and it comes from you, it's normally difficult to defend. But I can assure you, I advise Honorable Nandala to use my departure to actually seek a recognition of the opposition leaders in terms of giving them either gratuity or some kind of national recognition, apart from what happens within the opposition, where Wafula invites me and gives me a certificate. That's not good enough, because I'm in opposition as part of the state of Uganda.
Well, he obviously did not take your advice, and clearly you can see what's happening.
Well, maybe he took it late, but it's not too late, I hope.
Honorable Amama Mbabazi, now former Prime Minister.
Yes.
The moment news came in that he has been sacked and he is positioning himself to take on his former colleague in terms of working very closely together. Yes. The opposition was quick to embrace him and invite him over to take leadership of the opposition so they can oust President Museveni. Isn't that an indictment on the strength of the opposition with regard to your ability to fight this battle and fight it decisively to achieve your desired end of being in State House?
You see, Simon, you guys use that word so easily, opposition, without bothering to figure out what does it mean. Who are they? Opposition is nothing more than a reflection of the other side of the coin in Ugandan politics. It's not about individuals.
And it's not about certain individual parties.
Absolutely not. And so if there's a reaction towards an opportunity that exists because Amama is now able to take on President Museveni, and there would be a change, then that becomes a circumstance that everybody would embrace, those who look for change. Unfortunately, the people who do so most are the opposition, and they get labeled as being selfish or opportunistic.
But let's look at the state of the opposition. Like they always say, and I'm sure in your local dialect, it is said that, you know, united we stand, divided we fall. We've got a plethora of opposition groups, a plethora of civil society clamoring on a political ground. And these seem not to have worked in the last cycle of elections against President Museveni, or even setting the debate agenda in the House, or even making some substantial policy changes. What can be done to ensure that you are a recognized opposition beyond simply used as a ceremonial opposition, as it were?
Look,
because you're simply there to justify the fact that there's multi-party politics in Uganda, but not much else.
Simon, that is not the role or the quest of the opposition, to be recognized as opposition. They must be pursuing some specific goals. One of the goals is to provide alternative leadership to the country.
And do you?
The framework for change are not normally the general things that you see and hear. The framework for change are normally critical national events. When such critical national events die down, you have a difficulty in building a framework for change. In other democracies, it was the ideologies. You could pursue your ideological position. Here we don't have an ideological position that makes one yellow and blue. Absolutely none.
And why not? Why don't we?
We're starting
people like you, Professor Lati, you've been in this business for quite some time. Matter of fact, now you're a retired farmer. Mooting the idea of returning to mainstream politics.
We're literally starting from zero. There is no color of zero. Zero is zero. There's really nothing spectacular that you require. So what you see happening in the opposition...
I have a feeling, just sorry to break you up, I have a feeling that you hide behind the fact that you're just starting. You hide behind the fact that this is just, it is a nascent democratic dispensation to shield us from seeing the actual malaise within the opposition, or generally the body politic.
No, the point I'm making is this, that what you see of the opposition is what you see of Uganda. You know, the time when the Latigos were very powerful in the north, there was a war in the north, a very divisive war, but also a war that was very stimulating, very emotive, and that allowed people to clearly know who should be their leader. When that war ended, even somebody like Latigo, who was leader of opposition, almost became relevant. The fight was, where should the district headquarters of Agago be? And Latigo loses an election on that basis. Now, that is the same situation you see now. There's absolutely nothing fundamental that will coalesce people around the opposition and move them the way it was in the past.
You're being diplomatic as the nice guy that you always are. You simply are failing to tell us that politics in Uganda has been bastardized, for lack of a better word.
Look,
that people do not vote on issues, they vote on very peripheral, trivial issues, and that's why people who've got their head properly screwed on their shoulders lose an election, and then you get airheads leading the country to directions we are yet to see where
if you look at our parliament, you could say that is full of local content.
I like that.
It's nothing, nobody that you can pick and say this represents
a certain school of thought, ideology, or national in character. Yes.
And that's the nature of Ugandan politics now. And it becomes even more difficult when these guys come and they found that the issues are not local. The issues about infrastructure, the issues about unemployment, then they get
to foreign relations and all that.
They get lost.
They start grandstanding and putting up apps on TV.
Absolutely.
But again, someone must fix it. You must fix it. You are there. You cannot say, now that the politics has become bastardized, I wash my hands of this situation in Uganda, I retire to my farm in Agago, start growing corn and all that. Because at the end of the day, nobody in that house is going to deliberate on proper incentives for farmers. No one is going to ensure that you, who are growing crops at a large scale level and intend to export them to wider markets, are going to get very,
Simon,
very friendly.
Simon, I would not have left my bed at 6 to be here at 7. If I'm not concerned. That just tells you that even when I'm where I am, I'm still concerned. Except that the forum that allows me to address some of these things may change. But definitely I can tell you that I've not turned my back on politics. I will come back to Parliament and I'll be the old Latigo who will pursue policies and things like that. Come 2016.
This is the declaration of your candidate.
This is a repeat declaration I've declared before, even on NTV.
Professor Latigo, are there people who still think like you? Do you have a critical mass of, you have a think tank of friends, and contemporaries with whom you share this kind of sentiment, with whom you want to start as a critical mass to see how you can change the body politic? Is Ben Watch a part of this? Are all these other, is Erika Hanga thinking in the same direction? Are all these former members of parliament, for example, national leaders who are now off the scene, thinking the way you're thinking and thinking of coming back to
Let me tell you, life is cycling. We went through a cycle where it didn't matter who led us. But people are beginning to realize, for example, with prosperity, you need competent people to make the right decisions, because the cost of wrong decisions, like what the president wrote about the Anti-Homosexuality Act, becomes too high. So when people begin to reflect on that, you'll find them shifting back to the kind of leaders that represent the country and not what I said, local content.
How long will that take? Because we have a situation in this country of taking too long in a dire situation.
I have a strong feeling. I have a strong feeling that the coming elections will be a totally different situation. At the presidential level, and because we talked about Amama in the beginning, the uncertainty continues, because there are those, like they did in 2006, who say, look, Museveni will be 75 after this election. Give him that last chance.
Give him that last chance.
So that is going to be one of the key factors in that decision process. But if people think that it doesn't matter, he has done what is enough, somebody like Amama Mbabazi coming out would begin to create a condition for
a new narrative and all that.
Exactly.
But let's look at it from this point. The NRM seems for the most part to set the agenda on which the opposition therefore comes rallying behind and saying no, 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 as opposed to the opposition setting that agenda. These young men and women who have the mantle right ahead of you, don't they realize their ideological bankruptcy and sometimes want to come back to you for advice and counsel? Do you get some of these current members of parliament, current councillors in Agago coming to you, spending time with you to ask you on how they can up their political game? Or do they think simply because they trounced you, then you no longer matter?
No. You see, what you see nationally is artificial, if you like. Because if people were left to freely express themselves, there would be a huge coalescence around unemployment, around youth education, which has no relevance to their livelihoods, around imbalances in society. Those issues are there. But if the opposition tries to bring them out, they'll be hit hard by Kaihura and his group.
No, but bringing them, Kaihura hits you when you storm the streets to demonstrate and throw pigs all over the place. And there are other ways of putting your point across in a manner that is so robust and hits the nerve raw without hitting the streets to demonstrate.
Do you want to tell me that you have never been called to say, why did you ask Latigo and allowed him to say these things?
I don't remember such a phone call, and even if I did, I don't think it would be my place to have that discussion lest I be called again. But I'm saying, well, at least you've been hosted several times on radio station, TV station, and you have walked off the TV set and no one has blocked you. Even if they blocked you, even if they muzzled you, the idea will have been shared with the viewers.
Yes.
Beyond demonstrating, beyond posturing, beyond grandstanding, what else can be done? What else should be done to send the point very clear and be respected by the
I think these campaigns that are brought in civil society on election, like free and fair elections, on things like that. They're really important. They look trivial, but they impact people because they touch their minds, they touch their hearts. And ultimately, when issues come, it is those factors that will drive them either in support of the one issue or the other. And I believe that we are not doing so badly.
Professor Latigo, you see much of the work, or the word that goes around is that the opposition is here in urban centers, it's in Kampala on the streets and all sorts of things, and down in the periphery, the far to reach areas, the ordinary constituencies, this message not trickling down. You have spent much of your time in Agago farming and interacting with local people. There are those on your labor lines working with you. When you interact with these local folk, if at all you do, what is their sense of feeling with regard to how they are governed? And we're not talking about the guys who suck up to you, because there are those who you employ and will tell you all the nice things you want to hear.
You don't even have to take it to Agago. Just walk around the street and you hear the complaints. Ordinarily, those would be opposition in that definition of the common definition. But they like to see a Latigo face to it. But if you go throughout Uganda, people will tell you how things are difficult, how this corruption is killing our country. Now, in a normal situation, those will be key instruments.
But yet they are the same people who aggrandize corrupt officials, who allow them to sit in the front pew of churches, who give them heroes' welcomes when they have homecomings, who do not even go to the polling stations to vote out those very people.
That is the challenge that the opposition faces in Ugandan politics.
The ground is fertile. There is this mass public discontent of the way things are being done. But you have failed to harness that.
Let me tell you. You say the ground is fertile. It's like when I do my farming. If I have a very good crop of rice, and then it rains, I cannot use a combine, and it will rot in the field. This is more or less the same situation. We have massive harvest in terms of awareness. All these guys who have gone to school, they know what is going to our country. They know what this country could be if we manage it well. They know our unity could bring us together and propel us to modernity, like you were talking.
Where is the missing nexus? At what point, where does the rubber hit the road from that you see this disconnect?
I wish it was like a switch. You could just go and switch it on. It's not like that. It's going to have to be a hard process, and with some luck, it could boom, happen.
As we close on this one, Professor Latigo, of course, going into the opposition and trying to change fundamental changes, as it were, requires one to forfeit self. You've got to forfeit life's little luxuries onto yourself. You've got to beat yourself so hard. You've got to subject yourself to inhuman treatment. Okay, let's look at you, Professor Latigo, dignified old man, now living your, twilight of your life and enjoying life in the best way possible.
I'm not even old yet.
You're not yet old, but you see, would you imagine yourself going through the trenches of the city, getting beaten up by police, being dragged to courts on charges of this, that, and the other? Is it a sacrifice you are willing to give away from your comfort zone?
The sacrifice I'm willing to give is to give up everything else, which I did. Many people talk of the opposition. They don't know that me and Cecilia Ogwal are probably the old people of opposition politics. We were in Semogerere's campaign. That's how far back I
1996.
Yes, but I'm not changed. It has always been the Latigo who would make his point, engage everybody, and that's my approach. You'll never see me picking a stick or throwing a stone, because that's not my nature. I can handle it with my head. I don't have to handle it with my hands.
Professor Latigo, it's always a pleasure having you on, especially any program that I have you on, but very specifically waking up to this wonderful insight of knowledge coming to you, coming from us, coming from everybody, and of course putting it all together and packaging it the way you always do and sharing it with us. And so we hope that as we indeed close, we look at the fact that the opposition still has a long walk to be recognized.
It is Uganda that has a long walk.
And when we say a long walk, can we quantify this long walk? How long is this walk?
Let me tell you, one of the biggest challenges that Uganda doesn't seem to face, and when we used to go to Juba for the peace talks, I used to see, is a post-conflict situation in northern Uganda. Incredible challenges. A post-Museveni Uganda is going to be the most difficult Uganda to manage. And all of us who clamor to be leaders in those moments, I don't know how many of us prepare ourselves to deal with that Uganda, a post-conflict, a post-Museveni Uganda. That as we do anything else, we must bear that in mind.
How old will I be, you think, if that is going to come? And I'm talking
if
about
he doesn't amend the constitution, at least after the next 6 years, he will be out.
It will be out. Professor Ogenga Latigo, ever so constructively positive and optimistic, some of the hallmarks that don't make him quite the kind of politician that many of us expect him to be, but certainly that is his 2 pence on the state of Uganda's opposition, especially as we get down celebrating yet another anniversary to our independence. It's always a pleasure hosting such people with great valor and, of course, insights into their knowledge. Always make us energized every morning. When we return, it's Simon Says. Honorable Latigo does share with us this morning. I can only tell you that indeed, like they say, Rome was not built in one day, but certainly it wasn't built over so many centuries. One can only hope that in this baby step into adolescent steps, perhaps into adult steps, that the opposition in Uganda intends to take us to where they have promised to take us, we certainly shall arrive, as opposed to the recurrent song of we will get there and never to get there. That's all I can say about the state of Uganda's opposition. But of course, like he said clearly in his message, we get the kind of leaders that represent and reflect who we are as a society. We do not expect to get first world leaders, both in government and the opposition, when we still have third world backward mentalities. And indeed, our president did tell us not so long ago, and that message transcended across everybody, including his own colleagues in leadership, that we are a backward society that Africa is. And the moment we stop being that backward, that's the time when we'll begin to enjoy the fruits of not being backward and possibly get a formidable position, get a government that means what it's supposed to be doing, and of course, get an industrious body politic, get an industrious citizenry that will move this country from point A to point B. Have a wonderful morning. As we start this wonderful week on the second day, we know that it's going to be a short week for the most part. We'll have an Independence Day celebration along the way, but that doesn't stop us in any way from being productive and, of course, keep loving ourselves and, by extension, loving our country.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Siate, Mabel Kebirun, and Brian Mulondo.
A wife who you got through the office will be very insecure about you working in another place.
Always hunt up, don't hunt down.
You mean what? Go after your superior?
How dare you suggest that when a woman is aggressed against, we should look at the person who's been aggressed against?
Let the couple be. Let them sort out their issues. When they need you, then you come in.
Prostitution is being given a new brand.
All I know is that I connect people.
Let's not choose to open our zips and do whatever our urge is, because I don't think that an urge is stronger than your will to say no.
People attach a lot of questions, shame to HIV.
I do not believe that when you wear a short dress, you should be around.
Marrying a wife is like having assured sex.
Anytime you come, you must have.
Yes.
You raise a population that has no clue how to be men. Can you bring out a quality family?
I don't get married for my family.
Men, every Wednesday only on NTV.
My name is Cuts, aka Mr. Showbiz.
When I'm in Uganda, I only listen to DJ Baby Love.
When you're dancing on the light, girl walk out, your body down no fly, your fingernail them no fear fly.
You have a problem with it?
No, I ain't got no problem.
You don't use my mic, man. This is exposed mic.
I go deal with you personally.
XFB, it's officially back. Yeah, I'm in this heaty with cats. It's what we do, baby. Put UG on the map. Now come my walk. Now come my walk. Now come my walk. Now come my walk. Hey.
Tedi Muganda yagala munne kututumuka abanyankole mweyagalidde mu Kampala abajja okulonda mwafunamu bibanja mu Uganda.
I'm that dude, so they come and love it.
You're going to start paying for watching Exposed.
I wasn't born last night. I know these hoes ain't right.
We could do this all night.
award show, just one. Best entertainment program.
Log in for the glitz and glamour of Kampala's most flamboyant people and events.
I'm here today for Coco Fingers video shoot.
Big up NTV. Thanks for the support. Log in.
You're Golfy and you're watching Login.
Don't touch that dial, you know what I'm saying. It's log in.
We could do this all night. We could do this all night.
Kampala has been voted in the past as one of the favorite cities for tourists, one of the most peaceful cities. That is something that is changing.
Kale Kaihura, the Inspector General of Police, and President Yoweri Museveni, their alliance, they can only crack down or stop individual strikes and individual demonstrations. But I don't think they can stop the growth of militancy.
No holds barred.
Besigye and Lukwago have particular grievances against the government, some legitimate, some misguided. What should the police do? Of course, the police has to intervene, A, to protect the power of President Yoweri Museveni and the NRM from disruption by Besigye and Lukwago, but B, also, never forget this, to protect those ordinary people whose property gets destroyed.
I want to ask that many think that they've actually been frustrated.
Opposition parties in Africa do not tend to be constructed around policy differences. FDC lacks a glue to hold its coalition of different power-hungry individuals together.
Incisive.
You see, the NRM is more divided internally than the FDC. The advantage with the NRM is it has political power.
Analytical.
I think that one of the best organized political parties in Uganda is the PPP, the People's Progressive Party with Ansari. This idea that everybody is telling around the world that Africans are poor and they cannot contribute to their own political and social emancipation is crap. In fact, I think that the opposition parties in Uganda have to win an election in an unfair and unleveled ground.
Newsnight with Andrew Mwenda.
Obonyumirwa ebyemizannyo jangu nkulage.
Johnson, the boyhood Newcastle United man, historic, flying in the face of all football logic. A magnificent goal by Robbie van Persie. Ferdinand. Everton lead at Old Trafford. Walcott, Giroud. Suarez. Super Suarez. Kenyatta backs it up.
On the next episode, brought to you by
At Orange, we know you want to do more on the internet. That's why we bring you happy hour day and night.
Destiny River.
There's only one way to clarify all this. There's only one way. You must talk to Beatrice.
No way I'll talk to her. There's no way I'll talk to her. We're not doing that. We are not.
I won't be a victim of this curse. I believe in my protection. I trust it.
Do you really trust
do.
it? Do you trust it completely?
Amelia.
You can download movies at the lowest prices another fast from Orange. Dial *133# to buy a data bundle. Happy hour changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.
Watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji and Brian Mulondo.
Thank you for joining us this Tuesday morning. On to some of your messages on Facebook. Simon, in the big story, hosted Ogenga Latigo, the former LOP leader of opposition in Parliament, who said that if you look at Parliament, there is no one you can pick with a different ideology that stands out. And some of your comments here saying, Kenneth is saying they are all diehards. Peter is saying 100% right. Anita Okot says meaning they cannot actually think any further. And then Ogenga also went on to say that with this opposition, one of the goals for the opposition is to provide alternative leadership for the country. Noah Singe asks, but Professor, I want to challenge you that by lamenting that we have a single opposition in Uganda which doesn't have new ideologies as a potential group of leaders, but one that criticizes whatever a government tables. We have Mwesigwa here, Mick Africa, saying Professor was a great and intelligent MP during his time in office, in Parliament. People are beginning to realize that you need competent people to make decisions, and Daniel here says you're right, the result of incompetency in Parliament is causing a lot of damage to us, the taxpayers. Noah here says we have businessmen in Parliament. How I wish they make it for a master's degree, how they make it possible, how they say that each one needs a master's degree to stand as an MP, I guess as a minimum requirement. We now cross over to Brian for today's Everyday Life. Good morning, Brian.
I come with a very I think we've had it a lot, and most of us are saddened, and most of us are very annoyed when we hear such statements coming from people. But there's a common statement that goes around that one Kenyan can do the work of 6 Ugandans. One Tanzanian can do the work of 4 Ugandans. Are we lazy? How do we then turn our laziness into productive results? This morning, my guest is the head of policy and research at the Uganda Employers Federation. He's going to talk about labor productivity and competitiveness in the market. Good morning. Douglas Opia this morning to join us. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm very fine.
Thank you so much for coming back. I remember the last time we made it, you know, the discussion was so detailed that we had to call you back and talk about this. Now, Douglas Opia is the head of policy and research at the Federation of Uganda Employers. Please feel free to go during this discussion to go to our Facebook page, Morning at NTV, and of course on Twitter at Morning at NTV, and just share with us some of those questions. I will be looking, following them here on my phone and asking Doug those questions. But Doug,
yes,
let's start with the basics.
Yes.
In a layman's language, what is labor productivity?
In a layman's language, is simply output per hour of paid labor. What do you produce for every single hour you're paid for? Mm-hmm. That's what we refer to as productivity.
What do you add to my company?
Exactly. What do you produce if you're employed?
Mm-hmm. How, as an employee, how do I know that I'm producing something, you know, beneficial to my employer every hour?
Exactly, and that's why a company has got to have a measurement. Mm-hmm. How do you measure the productivity of your employees? Which unfortunately is a challenge in most companies. You see workers are not delivering, but you don't have clear targets either. Yo. So that should be the starting point. If I come to work in the morning, what is expected of me? So targets must be clearly defined. both on a long-term basis, on an annual basis, but also broken down to tasks on a daily basis. So each day I have targets that I've got to meet.
All right. So as an employee, I'll look at, you know, if my boss, Douglas, wants me to complete this particular document, if at the end of the day I have finished it, then I'll say I came to work.
Exactly, and I've delivered.
Is that the same thing that is then, you know, because I'm trying to get my head around this, I want to call it a myth.
Yes.
That it will take 6 Kenyans to do 6 Ugandans to do the work of 1 Kenyan. Is that the same thing that is used to describe our productiveness?
Unfortunately, it's the kind of statistics that is now so widely quoted to our own disadvantage. Because remember, we are in East African community. So the moment we continue with this manner of publicity that we are lazy, we are essentially keeping ourselves off the jobs from Kenya and Tanzania. But it's statistics that is essentially not true. Because you cannot have a situation where a single Kenyan is having output within 1 hour equivalent of 6 Ugandans. It's not possible. It's practically not possible. If it is fixing a bulb, would you need 6 Ugandans to fix a bulb that is done by 1 Kenyan? I think it's a misrepresentation of statistics. We know that perhaps they are a little more productive compared to us, but you can't put it into absolute number of people. It can't be that big.
Right. Is then labor productivity linked to competitiveness? If you're not producing results, then, you know, maybe that's what the Kenyans are doing and we are not doing.
I'm sure there's a very close link between labor productivity and competitiveness. There are several drivers, about 5 key drivers of competitiveness. And the first one is labor productivity. If your employees are not delivering, no matter what kind of sophisticated machines you have, you can't simply get the results. You have seen a lot of universities, schools are a very good example.
Yes.
Schools well built, having all the facilities, but the school is simply not functioning. It has collapsed. That's not a question of resource. It's not a question of infrastructure, but a question of the people, a question of labor productivity.
Is usually on this show we say, you know, yes, we have a huge turnover at the end of every academic year. There's only about, what, 90,000 jobs to compete for when we bring in, when we churn out about 400,000 graduates every year. But also we say some people cannot be employed. And so when they get to, you know, the marketplace, they cannot even speak English, they cannot write a report, they cannot do the basic things that are needed at work. So is that when, as an employer, decide these ones will not be good for me? If their labor productivity is 0, then I don't need them.
Yeah, you're actually right. That's the starting point. Labor productivity starts with getting the right person on board. So what you're essentially talking about is employability skills, which unfortunately is lacking in most of our graduates. And that's what, as employers, we are calling an issue of skills gap, an issue of skills mismatch. What is being produced in the school is different from what the employer needs. You're a computer expert, but you come to your desk, you can't do work. That's the sort of scenario that we are trying to engage with learning institutions to try and address.
Right. You had talked about the 5 determinants of competitiveness, and you had started with labor productivity.
Exactly.
What are the other?
The other, of course, the most immediate one is innovation. Your ability to do something much better with the same kind of resources. And then the other, of course, you can't ignore investments. If you want your employees to deliver, the facilities must be good enough. If just opening an internet page you take 1 hour, how many mails will you send, official mails, in a day? So the investments in the right kind of infrastructure, in the right kind of equipment is extremely important. But also, let's not forget the quality of the labor force and its participation. You know, if the workforce, you don't have a quality workforce, no matter whatever you do, no matter what most sophisticated machines you bring, they will simply not deliver. And then, of course, lastly, let's not forget the business environment. And the government has a really big role to play here.
Yeah. Well, some of those cannot be determined by the company. They are far beyond what you can do.
Exactly.
What is the situation, for example, in Uganda? How are Ugandan companies performing as far as labor productivity is concerned?
It's an extremely challenging situation, I must honestly admit. Our labor force is not as productive as we would want them to be. Actually, over time, if you look at trends in labor productivity, it has actually gone down over time. Previously, we were more productive. Now we are less productive than we previously are. The companies, most of them are simply complaining that workers are not getting the kind of jobs they want done within the required time and to the required standards. It's very disappointing. For instance, hotels were having chefs being brought from Kenya. That's rather so disappointing.
Where is the problem? Because, yeah, like it was in the past. Is it that kids come out of school without any skill? Is it that, okay, after school you realize you don't have a particular skill? You know, I didn't study television.
Yeah.
But when I came out of school,
yeah,
I did something before television, and then I realized, boom, this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
And I have worked on those skills. Is it that we don't have the drive to be good at our jobs? You know, why should they bring a chef? There are so many chefs, so many food places here. Exactly. Why can't I go to that level?
Actually, the point you mentioned is part of employability skills, adaptability. How easily can you adapt? Because human beings are not machines, and the business environment is changing continuously. The skills required for a particular job today will not be the same skills tomorrow. So the challenge we have been having is that even our training institutions have a problem. I've just given you the example of hotel chef. But look at the situation in Uganda. We have a hotel school in Jinja, which is doing so badly. The World Bank has given us some money. I hope we will revamp it and have it at a level that the Otali school is in Kenya, the Otali College. So that's one big disadvantage we have. Our training institutions are simply not well equipped. And that needs a lot of investment on the side of the government.
Let me just read this, and you'll help us interpret. Uganda's value added per worker is 68% lower than that of India, and 96% lower than that of China.
Exactly.
What essentially does that mean?
That means if, for instance, I am operating, let's say, as an industrialist, the output that I would get from a Ugandan worker would be that low in terms of percentage. So you see how significant it is. Of course, the Chinese, they have other advantages that a Ugandan labor may not have. They have better machines, they have better facilities and all those, but essentially that's what it comes down to. The output would, the difference would be that much.
Right. There's also statistics here. Uganda's labor productivity is noticeably lower, with Tanzanian productivity 28% higher than that of Ugandan farms, and Kenya's 65% higher. Is it this bad?
It's that bad. That's the situation we are in. But also, I must tell you, we are currently trying to do research on our own. The other unfortunate bit with us in Uganda, not much attention is paid to research and development. So essentially, these statistics that we do quote, sometimes I'm not very happy quoting them. I'm much more pleased quoting statistics from you both, but sometimes we don't have them. Because the situation is that every single research has its own motivation.
Yeah.
So if it is done by somebody from out, they have their interest, they have an agenda to drive, and perhaps we might help them drive their own agenda.
Yes.
You have had a situation where people are talking about how Ugandan schools, how bad they are. But we think in East Africa, we have the edge also in education.
Yeah.
We may not be performing in all areas well, but we are not doing so badly.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to rely so much on that.
Right. Well, maybe we're just blaming also the employees.
Yeah.
But are there things from the research that you've done that actually affect labor productivity?
There are quite many, actually. There are quite many. One of the things that affect labor productivity is the length of the workday. performance can only be as good as you feel comfortable doing a particular job. But if you arrived at work, let's say at 7, and by 10 in the night you're still working, certainly you may not deliver to expectation. And then perhaps you come to the office and equipments have broken down. You want to print a document, the printers are not working, the toner is not there. So those kind of things sometimes affect your productivity. You get to office, not even papers to print. Sometimes the materials are unavailable. But also, like I said, sometimes it's a question of supervision. The supervisor is simply not paying attention to what people are doing. He arrives also at work late, or even arrives early, but doesn't have these performance indicators. So essentially, you can't tell whether somebody has delivered or not delivered. So that is also extremely important. And sometimes it's just the quality of work. It could be beyond the capacity of a particular individual.
Right. Well, let me just ask you something. As the Federation of Ugandan Employers, have you realized that employers actually understand these things? You talked about equipment failing, long working hours.
Yeah.
I wake up at 4 a.m. Come here and work. My day goes on up to like 7, and I'm telling you, by 3 o'clock, I am out.
Exactly.
Yeah?
Exactly.
Do employers appreciate such things and understand that maybe at around midday, this brother needs a break?
Yes.
It's time to maybe sleep or something.
Exactly.
And he comes back refreshed. I know some other workplaces that have gyms. They say, okay, at lunch, go to the gym, jump around, breathe.
Yeah.
So that when you come back at your desk at 2 o'clock, we expect the best from you.
I agree. Now, there, I would say it's not entirely that all employers understand. Most employers do understand the need to be flexible. For instance, there's what we call flexible working arrangements. It doesn't have to be from 8 to 5. That's the traditional thinking, that somebody must report to work at 8 and leave at 5.
Yes,
Those are the
standard hours.
Those are the standard hours, but you can have flexible working arrangement. Somebody could be very efficient delivering early in the morning. You can decide, me I report at 7, or me I report at 6 and do my work by 3, I'm going home.
Yes.
That flexibility should be there. There are some people who find it very easy to come early. In the afternoon, they simply won't deliver. So that flexible
I think I'm also like that.
Exactly.
By 1, I am done.
Exactly.
I'm just on, what do you call it, diminishing marginal returns?
Exactly.
All right. What, as Federation of Ugandan Employers, what are you doing? First of all, what are you seeing companies do to improve labor productivity? What are you doing on your side to empower companies to make sure that the turnover is more?
First, on our side, what we are focusing on very much is sharing best practice. We have a depository of knowledge. At the Federation, we do what we call Employer of the Year Award. And this Employer of the Year Award identifies best practices from companies. And most recently, we did it on employee engagement. So we share that kind of knowledge with our membership, but also with the wider audience. So that's the first fundamental thing we do. We get into companies, see what is being done. What are those best practices that other employers could probably learn from? And in this case, we then organize what we call a study tour for employers. You get to see a production line in, let's say, Nile Breweries, which is doing very well in terms of being sensitive environmentally and also producing high-quality products. Then these smaller employers get to see how do these employers the big ones do it. And then we tend to also organize forums for these employers. They get together and share experiences with one another. That I can't simply do this. How do you people manage it? So that platform for knowledge sharing. And then, of course, we do one-on-one with the companies. Get to a particular company and see what exactly is there. And the other thing, of course, that we do is training. On a regular basis, we do conduct training for the employers, and that way labor productivity can be enhanced. A very strong component of labor productivity is the training element, that you're retooling people constantly.
Right.
And then you asked from the employer side, what are they doing? First, most employers are now becoming high-tech, because that makes an employee more productive. If you're using a machine, it's different when you're doing things manually. So you first have to have the right facilities. But also, secondly, is the environment conducive?
Yeah.
Because I can be at the workplace, but I'm on my Facebook. I actually arrived even 7:30, but that doesn't mean I'm actually delivering. And then you, as an employer, have clear performance indicators, where we started from. Most employers are trying to do that. They have targets. If you don't hit this target, we're putting you off.
Then we are laying you off.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so that people are fighting to deliver.
I think my boss is very clear on that. If you're not delivering, if you're not doing what your contract says, the door is always open for you, and we shall let you go.
Exactly.
I think that's very clear.
Exactly.
Well, this is a very, very, very huge subject. We can debate until the cows come home. But Douglas Opio, I know we'll call you again, and especially help us. And maybe next time you'll also help us, you know, how small businesses can be empowered. Or employers that are starting out, because some of us will go into this market and we are assuming stuff, and you know, we just want to be the bosses. How do you know, how can you be a best employer or employee? Because we're trying to grow your businesses, you know, slowly. So start the conversation. Morning at NTV. Tag me at MBGold2. Douglas, are you on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter.
You share your handle.
My handle is just at Opio Douglas. My name.
Opio Douglas.
My name.
Just that. Let's start that conversation and make sure that we become productive at our workplaces. When we come back, Brian Tuka will be telling us whether Arsenal is actually being productive or not. Is this the time that Man U is finally coming back? After that win over the weekend, they're now 4th on the table. Yesterday, someone I talked to told me this season, Chelsea will finish on top and Manchester United will finish 2nd. We'll be looking at that when we return. Stay with us.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Cassiati, Mabel Kenji, and Brian Mondo.
When we play together. When we play together. Uganda cranes, oh yeah. Uganda cranes with fire.
Uganda Cranes fans! We did it again! Big congratulations to the Uganda Cranes on their 2-0 win over Guinea. And to all the fans, a big thank you for coming out in record numbers to support our national team. Now let us get ready for the next game as the Cranes take on Togo on the 11th of October at Nambola Stadium. Come one, come all, because when we play together.
Airtel, together we can.
The official sponsor of the Uganda Cranes football team.
Win lots of prizes with our promotion. Drive with Regal Paints. These include cars, borders, bicycles, smartphones, and many others. To win, buy any of our Regal Paints products from the nearest hardware shop to get a voucher to enter the grand draw scheduled for December 2014.
Regal Paints. Paint it, love it.
Mu bonyumirwa eby'emizannyo jangu nkulage.
Does! And Adam Johnson, the boyhood Newcastle United man, Derek, flying in the face of all football logic. A magnificent goal by Robbie van Persie. Ferdinand! Everton lead at Old Trafford. Walcott, Giroud! Suarez. Super Suarez. Kenyatta has that backs it up. And cracked it in. Checo finds the net in spectacular style. Penalty for Borussia Dortmund. And he scores. To the goal from the Wembley.
We could do this all night.
Guess what show just won Best Entertainment Program?
Log in for the glitz and glamour of Kampala's most flamboyant people and events.
I'm here today for Coco Fingers video shoot.
Big up NTV. Thanks for the support. Log in. Ndiwa no lero nzize kukakasa.
You're Golfy and you're watching Login.
Don't touch that dial, you know what I'm saying. It's log in.
We could do this all night. We could do this all night.
On the next episode, brought to you by
At Orange, we know you want to do more on the internet. That's why we bring you happy hour day and night.
Okay, you want war, right? You got it. Where's the money? Where's the money you're supposed to give me so I won't talk?
You have to find a way to get him out of there. Yes, before T outcomes go.
I have something to tell you. Something important. Very important.
You can download movies at the lowest prices and never fast from Orange. Dial *133# to buy a data bundle. Happy hour changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.
$18 minutes on to 9. Thank you so much for staying with us. Joined by the Crazy Two. What's up, man?
Cool.
How you doing, man?
No bad. How you doing?
Yeah,
bad like that. Sarah, someone send it to us. Prayers. Next to the prayers. Hi, my bro. Those days I greet you with the what is that thing you put on TV when you're going to show something? Disclaimer. I greet you with disclaimers. No more like the other when I'll be more excited to see you and stuff like that.
So you're still not excited to see
I'll
me?
be fighting a lost cause. I'll be fighting a lost. You're good. You know, yesterday I was watching you guys. I remember made a statement and I'm thinking, yeah, if any of the dudes out there don't know that this lady is taken, you must be sick.
Yeah.
She was talking about us and said, you know, my husband.
My husband supports man.
That's why So whoever did know where America has been, yeah, that statement said it all. Thank you very much.
You got it home.
Absolutely.
I support.
I support us. When I was watching it, now my husband, when the two became one, But when the other became the other.
Brian, always good to see you.
Good to see you today.
Let's start with cricket. Ochan has rejected the call to the national team. Why? And two, will we miss him anyway?
the expression on your face, will we miss him? I mean, you know, one of those things where you're thinking, okay, you'll miss someone, but you don't have to show you'll miss them. Then you're like,
but this one,
I don't think we will. But anyways, first of all, short notice. Ochan had been called to replace Charles Waiswa, who had also turned down the national team call-up. For Waiswa, it's exams. He's got exams a couple of, I think, days to come at KIU University. And I was told that even the letter from the Uganda Cricket Association does not help much. The last time they wrote a letter, it didn't change much at the university. So he said, I've got to first attend to my education, then can come back to cricket. Now, Ochan was sent a letter a little late. The team he plays for in Australia, they couldn't allow him to come. The guys told him, short notice, so you cannot be back here. Will he be missed? Definitely, because this guy, when you look at the stats, they say it all that he's a very good bowler. But then we've got a number, but apart from being having good stats as a bowler, you need a wide squad where you can pick almost every good result from. You know, we've got a couple of good players already. Franco Nsubuga, the captain, Davis Karashan, the former captain, Arthur Chobe, and a couple of other people who can do the job for Uganda. But it's also better once you have a good number of people and all of them can deliver. Unfortunately, Benjamin can't be part of this. We can only wait and see what the UCA can do about the replacements. But it's not about him. If it was up to him, he would have come. But the team tells him, and he says he's got a very good understanding with the team. They've done a lot for him. He can't simply go against that decision.
Right.
Now, moving on to basketball, we have quite a fixture pile-up. How are teams coping as you look ahead today?
First of all, I don't think any of the teams should be surprised at this. There were a couple of postponements. One, weather. The other, I really feel FUBA have not been as organized as they should be this season. There have been a couple of postponements that should never have been, and there have been, I think, a couple of free days that would have been utilized better. For example, teams like City Hall, for example, and Tiger Head Power, UC for the ladies, and KCCA went to Zone 5. So all throughout that time, they couldn't play because we were at Zone 5 for the clubs in Nairobi. Now, I feel some of those gaps that were supposed to be covered by those teams that had gone to Zone 5 should have been covered by teams that there are no engagements anywhere. The likes of Sharing, the likes of Diamond in the Sun, the likes of Charging Rhinos, and maybe Vegetarian. So that, you know, a couple of those games against the small sides that have no engagements big time are gone. Instead of having a couple of games today like Charging Rhinos playing probably Vegetarian, and it was postponed for no reason. So I feel in that aspect, FUBA have not done a good job. But of course, things to do with weather, because the basketball is played at the YMCA, there's nothing much I can do. They haven't yet resolved the issue of Lugogo. National Council of Sports, for me, as always, tried as much as they can to harm sports than actually help it. Yet they are the custodians of the law. They are the institutions that are supposed to be promoting it. So in that aspect, they can't do so much. But the clubs expected this. I feel sorry, though, for many of them, because teams like City Hall may not feel the pitch of playing so many games. They've got a couple of good players and a wide squad, and both in quality, I'm talking about the depth of their team, both in quality and also numbers. So you feel they can play without 3 superstars and they'll still win a game of basketball. But for teams like Charging Rhino, Sharing, even the UCUs, I feel, even Warriors themselves, I feel they will feel the pitch of playing so many games. Some of those teams are going to play about 4 games in a space of about 9 days, which is unheard of. But today there is A1 playing against Magic Stormers, and then later on it will be Ndeje playing against UCU at 7:30. Right. At the YMCA, 5:30, and then 7:30 tip-off. Yeah.
Well, when we talk about the Uganda Premier League, most of the games for today have been postponed.
Yeah.
But I think they say, while, how do they say it in Uganda?
Definitely going to be among. But I can translate it
something.
Something
like
that.
Yeah. It's like an opportunity for police to build on a commendable comeback.
Absolutely. You see, they say games in hand are not games won. So if police take the lead, you know, several times when you're watching soccer sport, you start counting, saying, okay, we are 3 points behind, 4 points behind, but we have 3 games in hand. But those are not games won. They're just games on and you could lose them. And the points difference stays the same. So Police even going to the postponement were leading the table. Now, of course, okay, they were held and then Villa went on top, but they were doing well. So this is an opportunity for them because teams like Villa, who are competing with them and who are top, KCC, URA and Victoria University cannot take part because of the Cranes engagement. They've got a couple of players in the Cranes team, so they've been excused from this. The only thing I don't understand is these fixtures were made when they knew what the CAF calendar, or rather even FIFA, says that between this time there will be an international game. So I'm thinking some of these games should never have been fixed for them to be postponed. They should have been fixed somewhere, either before or somewhere, so that we don't have postponements. I just don't get the postponement, by the way, because they clearly knew there will be some engagements. But anyways, this is an opportunity for Police. Go and win your game. For example, they play, I think, Saddling Paints today. You go win your games. The Villas come back when you're about 3, 4, 5 points ahead of them. They've got to first win their games to catch up. So
a lot of pressure on
absolutely,
them.
It's a huge opportunity because they already started the season well, and they can only, I think, continue the good form.
Right.
Well, talking about the Uganda Cranes, does the form of the Ugandan players abroad have any bearing on this Saturday's game?
Yeah, absolutely, because we've always questioned whether our players play, where they play their game in their clubs.
They play regularly.
Yeah, but of course, apart from Ande Mwesugwa, who individually and personally gives us updates on Facebook or somewhere saying what the Basi won and stuff like that. There are not so many who get opportunities, but it's been good that actually in the recent weeks, most of our players have been playing. Ande Mwesugwa, Todobasi, Tony Maweje, and of course the biggest of them all has been the young man not Farouk Mia, the guy who did well at Chan. My God, I've even the name as Sentamu, Yunus Sentamu. He scored a winner for his club AS Vita in the Champions League, and they qualified for the finals by the Champions League. So he's playing well. He's been out of the team because he had lost, I think, 1 or 2 about the touches that he had going into Chan. He was the hottest property. Remember, if you read the stories, he went back home in Kasese. He was given a hero's welcome,
yeah.
Given how good he had been. Now this is an opportunity, and it's a good, I think, problem for Mitchell. You've got Massa, who scored over the weekend for his team, Pretoria University. You've got Sentamu, who's been playing well. Daniel Sorongo scored. I'll not so much about the Kenyan players because they've always done well, and they play, by the way, those in Kenya. But how about those that play in Europe and slightly bigger clubs? They've not been getting the opportunity. But there's no doubt, it's huge. No, beyond the form, beyond the appearance, but most important, the match fitness is very important for these teams. The clubs they come up against, some of the clubs they play for are way up there. So you feel it helps in terms of match fitness, coming here to match a couple of players who play in European top leagues, like the one we're going to be facing Togo. The likes of Emmanuel Adebayo is a start at Spurs, a couple of other players who play in France. So it's good that they've been playing.
He's coming.
Absolutely. Most likely, for Adebayo, I'll have to first see him to believe, because he can retire today, then come out of retirement the next day. He can be that controversial. But I think it's fantastic that our players have been participating for purposes of fitness, but maybe also confidence going into this big time.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's go and join the national team on Saturday as they play Togo. Let's go and be the 12th man. Yeah, let's have this match sold out.
Yeah, you know the results have been coming in well, but each and every game that we go into becomes tougher, becomes more important.
Yeah.
This is going to be one of them.
It's going to be important. Yeah. So let's go and support the guys on Saturday. Well, let's talk some Formula One. Yeah. While Hamilton won, he was not the headline.
Yeah.
That fatal accident.
It wasn't fatal. He's not dead yet.
Well, it was fatal.
Yeah, if you broke your leg, if you broke your leg, would it be fatal?
Fatal, I think, is only associated
with
it's a fatal accident.
No, it depends. It depends on what you want to associate it with. Now, you maybe have chosen death. For us,
accident is accident, regardless whether you die or not.
No, fatal accident.
Fatal is a very serious accident. You don't have to say. Yes, you don't have to die.
Serious accident.
Yes.
No. Fatal in other words is serious.
They're fatalities. There's a dead body.
Okay, we'll ask. Is a fatality what fatal means? Yeah. So if I say the fatal loss of my money,
Is that even?
Feto is only human beings. I don't think that.
No, but this one I'm not going to agree.
Fetal collision.
Fetal can be.
Someone must have died in that collision.
No, we can collide, but
no, we shall use.
Then why use the word fetal?
Fetal is serious. But I think it was fetal. I would still go there.
What does fetal actually mean?
I know one
Our
visit
director should tell us.
will tell us what it means and how you pronounce it. Yeah. But is he out of hospital? 1, 2. How many safety questions are being asked and answered?
To start with, he's still in hospital. His situation, they say now, is critical but stable. I think you've heard that 1,000 times. Sometimes you don't even have to wait for the statement. Once it's a serious accident, you hear people saying stable, critical but stable, and he's still in there. And it was a shame that Formula 1 had to go through this. It's not the first time. It's a very dangerous sport. You've got to live with it because most of these guys who do it, it's passion, this is life for them. And even when Bianchi is out of hospital, he'll go back and race if he's fine to do that, you know. But the safety questions, of course, there have been questions asked. First, why they didn't stop the race earlier. But you see, it wasn't the first time it was raining, you see. Teams felt that they could go on. For example, Lewis Hamilton thinks he has seen worse weather conditions than he saw in Japan. So maybe for some drivers, they didn't find it so important to stop immediately. But once this accident actually happened, that's when the race was stopped.
I mean, when a driver tells you, I can't see.
Exactly. And Felipe Massa kept on saying it. Yeah. But maybe it was how many of the drivers were saying that? Okay, all of them could see that the weather wasn't that good. But the safety issue that they talk about, of course, some people have accused the FIA of bringing in the truck very early. That truck that Bianchi went under. That's a normal measure that they take. Once there's an accident, the truck immediately has got to come and clear that car off, so that in case of any other accident, another car does not collide with that has already gone off the main the circuit. So that's how it's always been. It was just unfortunate that the time when the truck came, this guy had to actually go off the truck and all this happened. So it's unfortunate, but you've got to live with it. I think the safety measures will always come in and stuff, like a few things that will have to be changed. But there's not so much Formula 1 can do in terms of that. So it's a shame that Bianchi is doing badly, but the norm is the family and everyone has asked for their privacy, so we can only wait and see what comes. Hopefully, he comes back to race.
Quick, what's the latest on Schumacher? Is he out of coma?
The truth is, first of all, he left hospital. Yeah, that was a good thing. But since then, we haven't had anything. But of course, the family still asks for privacy, so people don't want to get into that. But for Schumacher, I almost forgot about him. Yeah. Because his was a more serious thing.
Yes.
I can tell you, if Schumacher was in most parts of Africa, if not all, he'll be dead now.
Yeah. Well, if you said you were watching the show yesterday, so you know who Isma's hero of the week is, Arsene Wenger. Is he being punished or not? No. And what did you think of it? Because I think he's the one who started it, but I think Mourinho must have said something.
No, I think everyone has a different view. To start with, I think Arsene Wenger went to talk to the fourth official, a right which he has as a manager, after Gary Cahill had gone through Alexis Sanchez. I felt it was a terrible tackle. In any day, an erratic referee could have given red for that. And Arsene Wenger said at the post-match press conference, if you want to know why I did that, to go to the fourth official, you go check how Alexis Sanchez is. Because he felt it was a very serious tackle. He has a right to go to talk to the fourth official. When he was going to the fourth official, Mourinho comes to stop him. Mourinho has no right to do that. It's Arsene Wenger's right to go and talk to the fourth official. If Mourinho has anything, you tell the fourth official, Arsene Wenger, to go back to his box. It's not Mourinho's job. It doesn't matter whether he was the host on the day. But also, Arsene Wenger, going by the records, I had you guys, trying to make him seem like he's the best guy around and what. I actually don't believe he's one of those cool guys that you want to, you made him seem. I do believe that he's been involved in a couple of confrontations with Sir Alex, with Martin Yeo, with Alan Pardew. He's not as nice a guy as people want to make it, want to make us look at it and stuff like that. So I'm thinking Arsene Wenger, I've had a couple of managers who have said when they go out for get-togethers of managers, he never appears. He wants to be alone. He's a little conservative. But this is the issue. I thought Mourinho shouldn't have gone to Wenger. It's simple. And I think what Wenger did was an accumulation of things that Mourinho has thrown at him and really wanted to go at this guy, because if you realize actually he went, they were separated. When Mourinho kept on saying something, actually Arsene Wenger went back. That's how angry he was. I don't think it's a good side to say, but after all, these guys are human beings. The most important thing and the good news for the Arsenal fans and for Arsene Wenger is that he will not be punished because the referee handled the issue. He actually warned them and told them they do that again, they'll be sent to the stands. So once he did that, once the referee did that, the FA do not punish that because they say the referee handled it.
He took control.
Yeah, if the referee hadn't done anything, I will guarantee you there'll be something. Yeah.
Well, quickly, 30 seconds. Balotelli, I think he's a phenomenal strike. Super Mario is awesome. But is he that bad at this point that he has been kicked out of the Italian squad, or because he changed, he's now in England, he's playing in England?
First of all, I think a couple of years back it would be tough for you to find a player playing for the Italian national team who wasn't playing within the country. Yeah. It's changed all of a sudden because, I mean, the Italian league is not one of the best. The La Liga and the Premier League have gone ahead of them. So if there are a couple of good players, for example,
had that.
Yeah, for example, a couple of good players, like if there are good players in the Premier League and the La Liga, they'll be taken over in the Bundesliga. But it's not about Mario being bad, it's about form. National team, they'll always call up guys who are doing well. For example, Pele had never been called for the national team of Italy. The guy Southampton signed this summer. He started the season well, he's been scoring goals, he's looking good. Look where he is. He's been called up by Antonio Conte. And I remember when Mario was heading to Liverpool, Antonio Conte said he was not so sure about him going to England. And I think now that he hasn't performed, it shows that he didn't have a big decision to make. He's been one of Italy's best players. They've always relied on him. But of course, he's not played well. He's out of it. I don't think he's totally out of the Italian picture. He will definitely be called back once he picks up. Yeah, he needs to go in form. He needs to start scoring goals. He needs to start playing well. There's no doubt that Italy will call him back.
Well, at 1:30 p.m., join the team on Omumuli and, of course, Sports Bar from Club Silk every Monday at 10 o'clock. And you can catch up on the latest sports activities. When we come back, we'll be wrapping this up. But we'll tell you every day to contribute an African proverb. This is what we have this morning. When the mouse laughs at the cat, there's a hole nearby.
And the mouse?
The cat can't fit in the hole.
Yeah. Escape route.
That's why some people are laughing at Mbabas. But
why do people want
maybe that's why he's laughing at them. He must be looking at a hole where.
Sure.
If I was Babazi, I think I would be tired of that question. Are you going to stand in 2016?
I think he's tired.
Man, everyone asks him.
Maybe he is, but anyways, it's always good to have an escape route. So it's always important. It gives a smile. And every time you look at the haters and you're thinking, okay, this dude do not even know what is coming up, baby. Yeah. I think it should be a proverb dedicated to the haters. I mean, there's so much coming up.
That is going to be my status today on Twitter, so I'll put it up.
Yeah.
When the mouse laughs at the cat, there's a hole nearby. So find your place. Are you the mouse or the cat? We'll see you tomorrow.
I'm sure you're the mouse.
Mrs. M is also in the building.
Yeah, M. What's M? What's
Muhereza.
Muhereza. So what up to Muhereza, man?
Yeah, shout out to Mr. Muhereza.
So we're doing a good job of
watching the show.
I hope so.
Oh, he better.
Are you seeing what she's saying?
All right, but
are you seeing what she's saying? Oops.
Yeah.
I've never seen you from
Morning at TV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Molondo.